Welcome, everybody, to another session of Prabhupada Memoirs, where we discuss the intimate pastimes that Srila Prabhupada had with his direct disciples. And today, I'm so honored that we have Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi on right now. And how are you, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Good morning.
Good morning. And just in case some people may not know Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi, I just wanted to give a brief bio, and of course we'll be going even more into it. And welcome to everybody that's joining on. 106 of you have just logged on straight away, so it's going up. So thank you so much, everybody. So Malati Devi Dasi joined ISKCON in San Francisco, USA, and she was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in January 1967. And she's become an integral part of the pioneering years of ISKCON. One of those has to be is 1968, along with her 6-year-old daughter, Saraswati.
6 weeks.
6 weeks, I do apologize. 6 weeks old Saraswati. She came to the UK with herself and 5 others. And they actually set up the temples, as you know. We got one in London. And then also, everybody may be aware of the epic adventure that resulted in the release of Radha Krishna Temple album in 1969, which was produced by the Beatles, George Harrison, which we must be talking about as well later. And then also you have traveled with your husband, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, who was Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary. And amongst other tasks, Malati Devi Dasi cooked for Srila Prabhupada. So that sounds amazing. And not just that, in the later years, of course, she came back to the UK and helped with the Bhaktivedanta Manor. And then in 1990, she established the all-female ISKCON temple, which later was awarded a large roadside bronze plaque by the state of Ohio. So that is just phenomenal. And then you're also part of the GBC, which you joined in 1998, if I'm correct. And your responsibilities are focused in the USA. And your zonal areas are Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and Western Pennsylvania. A founder of the Vaishnavi ministry.
Just a co-founder. The real founders are Siddharma and Pranada. They're the ones who put that thing over, and the rest of us, like me, we just helped.
Thank you for that clarification. And something really amazing recently that came out. You've been assisting in compiling a book of personal remembrance of 305 female disciples of Srila Prabhupada, allowing the unique stories of the spiritual daughters to be heard and recognized. And this unique publication was launched last week as an offering to Srila Prabhupada and is available through Amazon and the Bookright Press. And just so everybody's aware, the picture you can see next to Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi, you can see it. It's called A Bond of Love. And we'll be talking about
A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters.
Okay, A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters. And we're going to be talking about this book as well. So right now, if I'm correct, you are in New Vrindavan. How is it over there?
Pretty good. Just had a 20-degree heat drop, so quite nice today. Thank you.
No, it seems to be around the world right now. The temperatures are a little bit hotter than usual. In UK, where I'm from at the moment, it's we're getting some good sunshine. But just this, from New Vrindavan, you've been so many places around the world. You've traveled around the world. And of course, it all started in San Francisco for yourself on that initiation, and you had your initiation there. Can I ask, regarding Srila Prabhupada, what is your first memory of meeting Srila Prabhupada?
Well, it's kind of like a 2-part memory.
Please.
Because the first introduction came through 2 of his early disciples, meaning they were in the first initiation, which was in Janmashtami of 1966. So that was Mukunda and Janaki. Janaki being the First Lady disciple. And we had known them previously, before they were Mukunda and Janaki and before they met Srila Prabhupada. But we reconnected on the top of a very large mountain in a huge national forest in Oregon. And it was there that we found out, at least I can say, I definitely found out that I wanted to meet this person. And Shamsundar was always saying that we needed to have a guru. And as a foolish, independent-minded American female lady, I thought, yeah, you can, if you want someone to tell you what to do with your life, that's fine. I want to make my own mistakes. You know, I had that kind of a foolish mindset. But Mukunda, which was another thing, Mike was now Mukunda, Jan was now Janaki. First prasadam occurred there. We entered our cabin. We had been out for a day and we came back. They were there. And Janaki was preparing something on our wood stove, which I couldn't grasp, but it just was so amazing. These little dough balls, made a dough ball, pressed it out, rolled it out, threw it on the fire, and they puffed up. So, first prasadam. And Jamuna was also there, but she hadn't yet been initiated, you know. So then during the dinner, Mukunda said that, and that was another thing. Now, okay, they got married, they had new names, and they were vegetarians, you know. So, which was fine, but it was just in those era, being a vegetarian was kind of equal to being a communist, you know.
Got you.
It wasn't like now; it's totally common, you know. So during this first time of honoring Krishna Prasadam, Mukunda said, when dinner's over, I want to show you these books. And those books were the 3 volumes of the first canto, Srila Prabhupada's first official publication in large books. And on seeing this format, on seeing how he was presenting something that was so authentic and backed up by the Sanskrit, the transliteration, the translation, and the purports, I determined that I definitely wanted to meet this person. Wow. Because other people who we'd previously run into had nothing to offer but words that made no sense. You know, just as Prabhupada would describe flowery words of the Vedas, only they omitted the Vedas. So it was just flowery words. So that was introduction in that way. And the actual introduction, physically, so to speak, occurred in San Francisco because Mike, Mukunda, and Janaki Jamuna, they were on their way down to San Francisco to open a temple. And they invited us to come. And I remember asking Mukunda, well, what's a temple? And very serious, he gave a very serious answer. It's a storefront painted white. Because we just get these empty storefronts and yeah, we painted them white. Anyway, we joined them. And as things turned out, we joined them and prepared, found a place, got it ready, and invited Swamiji to come from New York to San Francisco, which he did. And that incident was the first time he ever flew on an airplane.
Oh, yes. Okay.
You know, he came over to America on a boat, a freighter, not like a cruise ship. And one other time, you know, by then, after flying to San Francisco, then it became normal for him to take a plane. But one other time when he went to another country, and he said, I have not flown in an airplane to see your country. I'm here to do Krishna's business. So we saw him at the airport in San Francisco. And at those times, there were no restrictions on anybody coming in and out of the airport. So there were maybe almost about 50 people, maybe less, that's a ballpark, but there was people from the press. In those days, they had very kind of these large box cameras with big boom, the flashlights that would go off. So they were there, and Allen Ginsberg, who was this hippie beat poet, he was there. He had made some connection with the devotees in New York, and he was one of the only people that he actually had a harmonium. He had already learned the mantra from visiting India, so he was easily attracted to parts of Krishna consciousness, not all of it, because the four rules and regulations were never going to become part of his lifestyle. So he was there. I was there with Shamsundar. Of course, we weren't Shamsundar and Malati yet. And we had our little border collie, Ralph. And
you had a dog. A dog, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the dog came down with us from Oregon, along with the cat, but the cat didn't come to the airport. And so you can see, if you Google Srila Prabhupada San Francisco, January 1967, you can see a little short clip of that airport arrival. And you see the eagerness of all those who are present. You'll see an early edition of Mukunda and Janaki, myself, Shamsundar, and others. So then from the airport, we went to our little storefront painted white with the sign, Prabhupada liked the sign, Radha Krishna Temple. And he addressed of course, we'll always say from those days, the temple was packed. But given the size of the temples in those days, which were fairly small compared to what we come out with now, it wasn't that hard to pack a temple, pack the room. Yes. But still it was packed, And for an unknown person coming with an unknown mission, having a packed small space or not, it was still impressive. And there was so many varieties of people there. The TBE, to be expected, hippie variety. And then there was people with a suit and tie variety. It was all types of curious persons who came. And among the hippies, like in the hippie era, sometimes the hippies like to dress up as other famous personalities. And so you would see a lot of Jesus is dressed like what they thought the hippies dressed like what they thought Jesus would look like, or Geronimo, who was a very powerful Native American Indian, very powerful person. And, Cleopatra on the ladies' side.
Wow.
Some kind of, like long gone character, and they would dress up in person. So we had these people in the audience too, And Srila Prabhupada he acknowledged everybody with a nod of his head, picked up the kartals, began a kirtan. We had some little pieces of paper with the mantra on it, and even ourselves, we were still trying to get the words in the right order, looking at this little piece of paper. And then Prabhupada spoke briefly to the audience, and there's a standout from that, for me, from that introductory lecture. And especially given the fact that this was an audience, as I mentioned, largely composed of young freedom and peace-loving hippies, where the culture was based on, love and peace and love, brother, peace, and they go like this, peace and love, we go like this, right? Yes. Peace and love, brother, peace and love, sister. So Prabhupada starts out by saying there is no love in the material. He said there is no love in the material world. But, for all these lovers of peace and lovers of love, that was a pretty shocking statement, But he quickly and wonderfully explained the source of all love, the causes of all love, the supreme lover, Lord Krishna. And I mean, just speaking personally, when I heard that, I felt some kind of relief, because like everybody else, you're looking for love. You know, there was a song at the
Yes.
time, looking for love in all the wrong places. You know, it wasn't happening. We weren't in, and there was already seeds of discord, you know, agitation going in. So when Prabhupada gave that beautiful, simple explanation, it connected with the heart. And
That, you know,
that
this
was the
love.
actual
Sorry.
meeting, the first.
This peace and love, what you're saying, because it's actually carrying on today. Even today, we have the Fortunate People team who say, for peace and love,
Oh,
for love and peace, chant the holy names. So it's you know, it's they've got that inspiration from there. So I just wanted to just mention that.
absolutely. And actually, we could do with a little peace and love these days, even among devotees. It's just there's so much intense agitation in the air. People don't know how to deal with solitude. So this imposed solitude has caused a lot of people to really freak out.
No, it's very true. I've just had a lovely comment coming through, and I wanted to just say, so Kameneya Mataji, who is doing so Kameneya Prabhu is actually doing a lot of Vaishnavi talks and helping facilitate. And she says, what an absolute treat and honor to hear about these pastimes directly from Malati Prabhu. After having read about them in various memoirs, such as Shamsundar Prabhu's books, so grateful to be able to hear live. So we are all very grateful. I just want to also, just on those initial times, those memories, what you shared, which are so powerful and gives a nice setback to us of what the late 60s, early 70s looked like. But for yourself, when you met Srila Prabhupada that first time, because you must have heard about him and it's all built up. How did it feel coming face to face with Srila Prabhupada the first time? How was that feeling for yourself?
Well, I think I had a similar feeling, not feeling, but a similar response to many people. I mean, just like in compiling this book, A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters, and in doing interviews, and I wasn't the only person, by the way, doing interviews. Bishaka was involved. There was, you know, Kaishori was involved. Then finally, Maya Priya just shoved it home and took it to the finish line. So I had a minimal part, really, honestly. But in compiling these memories, there would be some common themes, such as he was glowing, such as his feet didn't seem to touch the floor. Oh, he's so short. You know, because you're in your mind, you're seeing this great, amazing person who we didn't have photographs. The only picture we had was the one in Tompkins Square Park where he has his hand on his head. And it wasn't really on his head. It was like this, to shade his eyes from the sun.
Got you.
You know, but it seems so mystical, that picture, that it quickly caught the imagination of the general public. I don't know, what was I answering the question?
So what no, you were saying about what you were feeling. You gave the examples of others and what they said.
So I mean, you just go through what I was thinking just prior to the appearance of the plane and the plane landing. I started thinking, okay, you know, he's this mystical, he's a Swami from India. He must be mystical. He must have powers. We probably didn't even need to send him a ticket. He probably could have just levitated his way over. I mean, I actually thought that, you know.
Amazing.
And well, because we didn't understand anything about spiritual life in terms of application. So a Swami, for example, basically is one who can control their senses, right? But Swamis we had met heretofore had been anything but sense controllers. And then there was already people that we might not have seen, but knew about, that would perform so-called, you know, miracles or magic, you know, like a little dust up their sleeve and long sleeve at that, and then it would come out in their hand. So here was somebody quite different. He was an author. He had something. He wasn't just tooting his own horn. And but we still didn't understand like if you had said he's a great acharya, we wouldn't have, what is that?
Mm.
And founder acharya at this point had not emerged immediately. I think it emerged
Gotcha.
in New York, but for us that wasn't there. So these titles, the author, the acharya, he became known as a very great orator, for his speech. So many. He himself in 65 when he came, and they had this first article about him in Butler, Pennsylvania. He himself called himself ambassador of Bhakti Yoga to the West, and that was in the Butler Eagle newspaper. So he had these different personas, you could say,
Mm.
but to see in one, here is that person, and then okay. So I was waiting for him to come. Obviously we all were, otherwise why would we be at the airport? And he comes. He was actually the last one off the plane, and
Right.
when he came, there was this like brilliant flashlight, kind of almost blinding. And at the same time, I found myself on the ground. So keeping in mind, we didn't even know about obeisances at that point. So it wasn't like, well, of course you're on the
That
ground. You make
yeah.
obeisances. We didn't even know the word. Um, and I was thinking that this light was coming from the photographers, their great big cameras had with the big flash things. And then I remembered, wait, they're behind me. So I couldn't, couldn't be in
Can
my
be.
eyes. And then I looked up, I'm still on the floor. This is going very fast in my mind. Then I look up and he was like right in front of me. And he was just, as they say, glowing. And his beautiful feet, which were in these white pointy plastic shoes, like was literally gliding. All the things you hear was happening, And there were several incidents of other people having that experience of finding themselves on the ground, like inexplicably. Satchidananda Swami mentions it in one of his books. I forget which one, but he also found himself on the ground. Now, I thought about that, and then I thought what probably happened was that the level of consciousness we had was pretty low in those days.
Hmm.
And suddenly here comes not only the ambassador of Bhakti Yoga, but a self realized soul. And this powerful emanations of, like pure goodness. People talk about the
Mm.
light, but pure goodness, that was what he was emanating, although we maybe couldn't understand that at the moment, but it collided with our darkness, with our covering, and crashed through momentarily. So just the collision be this ignorance and this purity just kind of knocked you on the floor.
It's so amazing to hear the impact and the power Srila Prabhupada had in that first initial, should we say, meeting when you saw him. That shows how it's also how receptive the disciples, the devotees at that time were as well. It's really nice to see. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask as well, just on that, and you've given a little glimpse that when you saw him, what it made you do, you hit the floor, and you weren't aware of these type of things at the time, and the pain obeisances, all this just naturally seemed to come. But can I ask you just some, if you can share some pastimes of what helped you have faith in Srila Prabhupada and continues to have faith in Srila Prabhupada? Is there any types of pastimes that you had with Srila Prabhupada that really stick out for you?
Well, in general, you could say Srila Prabhupada embodied faith in an era of faithlessness. And that faith was expressed through his purity, through his unrelenting commitment to bring Krishna consciousness, to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya, and speaking in an unadulterated manner, not not bringing up things in a not sorry, I can't remember the word. Well, to use a common expression, he didn't dumb things down. To bring
Yes.
them down.
Lay terms. Lay terms.
He spoke clearly, precisely. If you look at and read some of the lectures, scripted lectures, or just hear them from '66, and this is prior to to Second Avenue. He was speaking to the students of that Mayavadi doctor Mishra, and he's speaking to them super high level bhakti from the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. And he wasn't bringing it down to their, he was just giving it to them. And recently I've become acquainted with a person who was part of that scene. Now the person's in Ohio.
Wow.
And, he's having a really hard time getting around that corner, but it's coming that God is a person and we are not God, And God is not a nothing. God is a person, Oh, it's a very revolutionary method. Revelation at that point in time. And then the idea, also the popular philosophy, okay, everything is God. Nothing is God. God doesn't exist. God is dead. Time magazine had an entire issue where the cover, God is dead. Black background and red letters, So pretty confused. And then the best one of all was, you're God, I'm God, we're all God. And when that one hit, I just said, no way. If I'm God, there's no hope. And Srila Prabhupada so eloquently, so clearly, so precisely, so unrelentingly gave us the absolute truth. And he wasn't at all watering it down because we couldn't understand. He just kept giving it to us.
Wow. It's this is the power you're showing of Srila Prabhupada, of how he, instead of bringing it down, he was raising people up.
Yes.
So he kept it to that level. So thank you. And we're talking about the pioneering times, and there were so many pioneering moments in the 60s, late 60s, which you were a part of. And one of them I would like to ask you about is, of course, Srila Prabhupada asked you and 5 other members to come to the UK.
Yeah.
When he gave that, and at this time, just so everybody that might be just joining in, Malati Prabhu actually had a 6-week-old daughter as well at this time. I'm a father of now a 2.5-year-old, and I tell you, if 6 weeks, I still remember my child and how delicate she was. And I just want to ask the question, when you got that news, what was going through your mind? And then if you could just let us know how that pastime happened, that'd be really great.
Well, we'd been talking about it, so it wasn't like it came out of the blue. And, Shamsundar, he was always had broad aspirations, and he had that idea, if we could go to the UK and meet the Beatles, get the Beatles to chant Hare Krishna, that would be a big push for the movement. It would be something that could really propel the advancement of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra internationally. So that was the scope. That was the consideration. And I think it was Mukunda went to Prabhupada. He was talking about this, and Prabhupada asked him, "So Mukunda, what do you think about Shamsundar's idea to meet these Beatles?" And Mukunda kind of like, well, it just might work. And that was all the encouragement Prabhupada needed, So then, okay, we were going to go. And at the time I was pregnant. So he said, after I deliver, wait a little bit and then we can go.
And then you set off for UK. How were those early days in the UK when you were there? and of course you have your daughter, and all 6 of you. How, if you could just for the audience, those initial days, how that was.
In one word, bewildering. It was like, trying to get established somewhere, somehow. It's not like we arrived and some people knew we were coming. We didn't know anybody. Nobody knew us, and we weren't allowed to work. So we had very little money. The money we used to get over to show cause, because UK at the time was very concerned, but they didn't want hippies invading their country. So if anybody came, they had to show that they would be able to support themselves. And we borrowed, I think it was $1,500 from Srila Prabhupada's BBT, by Prabhupada's authorization, to show that we could support ourselves. But we came in 2 by 2, 3 by 3 in my case. So we came over first, showed the money, and then sent it to the others who were waiting in Holland. Then the next set came over. Then the money was sent back, and the final ones came over. But it was all the same money. And then Shamsundar tried to wire it back to Prabhupada, and somehow it got lost on the way. Eventually it was recovered, but Shamsundar was really lamenting, and Prabhupada said not to worry, because that was a 5th-class bank. It wasn't our fault. But we landed not having any idea what, where, how, just this vague idea of let's meet the Beatles. And so we changed addresses, we changed zip codes quite a lot in those days. We didn't always live together.
Right.
We at one point were in a place called Herne Hill.
Okay.
They would pronounce it Herne Hill, but so that point we were kind of together, and then that arrangement came to an end, and we were living scattered here and there all over the place. And so that, and without having the, phones, the personal phones like we have now, no internet, no WhatsApp, even communicating among ourselves, being spread all over was even difficult. And then we had a place in central London, and for a while, and then that place was a kind of a fixed up former warehouse. It's been described by, Mukunda, Shamsundar, and Guru Das. I don't need to describe, but, in that place, there was a hippie newspaper in the basement. There was a garage, and we had this funky little vehicle that Shamsundar had got that helped us get around town. And that was in the garage. Also in the garage was our shower.
Oh, okay.
Stove and sink, and also I was living in the garage with my daughter in a cardboard box. So it was, there were, and I would hear these people, the hippie people from the underground newspaper, which was literally underground because it was in the basement, walking by. So there was, Jamuna was out in this one Jamaican area, and she was just like praying, Prabhupada, please come, Swamiji, please come. But we had no place to bring him to immediately, But we weren't sitting around. Practically every single night there was some engagement somewhere, somebody's house. We'd go to this place called the Art Labs, which was right close to that warehouse where we lived. So we were constantly busy. And in fact, my daughter's first word, I remember, because we couldn't figure out what she was saying. What was she saying? Was it Guru Das or Jamuna figured out she was saying engagement, like, because we were talking, what's the engagement time? What's the engagement? So, you go with it, Hare Krishna, at least it was in relationship to Krishna, but, we were quite busy, actually. And then little by little, some young people came, and they would gladly join in whatever was going on. and they would, the young men, they would get jobs, house cleaning, flat cleaning jobs, and they would give their, get a whopping £7 a week for that. But they would give the money over to help keep things going, So there were, from the material world, it's a hard struggle for existence. And although we were on one level in the material world, we were trying to bring the spiritual world to the residents, to the population in the UK. And so the struggle that we were going through was not the same as the struggle for existence of the karmis. We were struggling to get through the deep layers of Maya and present Krishna to the UK public. And in presenting Krishna, it meant presenting Srila Prabhupada, the emissary of Krishna.
Wow. And then when of course then Srila Prabhupada did come later on when you had the building, and
but even then, he came. The building, we didn't have a place to live in the building that wasn't ready, and we stayed then. That time that we stayed with John Lennon's place.
Yeah.
And then that came to an end, and then Prabhupada was in a place, a furnished apartment on Baker Street near this Tussauds Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And just waiting for that temple to be ready,
So that's when Srila Prabhupada first came to the UK, and so it sounds like it was still work in progress in terms of the temple itself. And when he said,
yeah.
What did he share with you at that time when he did come? Can you remember some past times when Srila Prabhupada did come to London?
I don't know in which chronological order, because even at that point, I wasn't living in myself and another young woman who had joined up, Draupadi, and her husband Devananda and the son Dhruvananda. So the men could stay in the temple, but not the ladies with children. So we were often like a little, like a nightly rental type of place nearby, but not totally nearby, but could walk. And a lot of the times, there would be so much going on that you didn't even know what was going on. But still, the temple was trying to be, Shamsundar and those who were helping and working on getting the temple done. Others going out on Harinam Sankirtan down Oxford Street, and then the cooking. So then when Srila Prabhupada arrived, I started cooking for him. So that meant, and at the same time, there was a few shifts in where where we were staying. But somebody would generally look after my daughter, and I would go early, particularly when Prabhupada was in Baker Street. I would go there, and there was an elevator. There was carpets on the floor, which anyway, that was supposed to be a sign of prestige, but yuck, Carpet. And the place was furnished. So I would go over in the morning and stay through the afternoon meal, and then come back again the next day, and somehow or other try to do some shopping in between so that there would be something to cook. And it was at that place that I had the opportunity of watching television with Srila Prabhupada. So I came one morning and I saw the door wasn't like pulled tightly shut. So for some reason, I felt some apprehension, like, what's happened? Has something happened? And I'm kind of standing there and I hear, Malati, come in. We're watching telly, come in. Our television, come in. So I came in, and all the furniture was kind of pushed in the living room, which he never used, So there was a TV and it was on, and he says, "So they say they're going to the moon. Let's see." So I was the kitchen was right next to that room, and I was kind of like a little back and forth between, because I was getting breakfast ready, back and forth between. So then when that happened, they announced they're going to the moon. So Prabhupada, in a very calm way, he said, "No, they did not go." So then his servant at the time, Purushottam, became really upset. He says, "But we just watched it."
Yeah.
Prabhupada says, "Turn off the idiot box. Now it's made idiots of us." But
Wow.
he could never accept that. And years later, I was coming into New Vrindavan from Ohio, and I stopped at this petrol station, which is a few miles close to New Vrindavan, and on the newspaper rack, they said they did not go to the moon. I thought, wow,
Wow.
So I bought that paper just because of that headline, and then I read it, and it was really interesting, and it was from a former NASA scientist who was part of the whole expedition. And he just started pointing out, just using that picture, which was a totally common, everybody has seen a picture, to show from that picture why they were on the moon. He was pointing out the lighting. He was pointing out where that so-called spaceship was. There would have been a crater because it would come down with such a velocity that, it would have made a little crater. So many, there was no shadow, so many things were mentioned. So I was thinking, Prabhupada did not need to be vindicated, but nonetheless, for those doubting Thomases, here it was.
It's so nice that the way Srila Prabhupada, one thing that comes to mind, he mentioned in Vrindavan, March 31st, 1976. He said, "We take a newspaper and we read what the politicians say, so many nonsense things. We waste our time. We should increase our taste for hearing and chanting about Vishnu and Krishna." And here you can see that Srila Prabhupada, you just said about that idiotic box, turn it off because it's now influencing us. So it just came to mind. I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much. That's one thing. I've just seen a message come. Well, quite a few messages, but I want to say, Napur says, "We heard a lot of hardships, but absorbing this sort of hardship for Srila Prabhupada at UK with 6-week baby, amazing, unbelievable." So thank you for explaining.
Honestly, although yes, it was difficult, that wasn't foremost on our minds. We were there for a mission. We were there to serve Prabhupada's desire. And that was really, no matter what other things were, going on, kept us together and kept us going.
Yes.
We were willing to put aside our personal issues and problems and hardships. That wasn't part of the mission. That wasn't why we were there. We could put it aside in order to finally have some little success. And even then, we knew the success belonged to Srila Prabhupada.
And I want to bring you now, because Srila Prabhupada, you were directed to India as well after by Srila Prabhupada to assist establishing the Hare Krishna movement over there. And bringing back to its source. That was the aim. And also you assisted, which is really interesting here, with the purchase and shipping of several sets of temple murtis to establish deity worship services in America temples. I think it was Detroit, Dallas, Toronto, and Chicago. So,
and recently, Farmington Hills, Michigan.
Yes, Sri Radha Gopijana Vallabha in Michigan. So it's like this pioneering spirit is now exploding, going around the world, and you're helping now with the procurement and finding and sourcing deities, which is phenomenal. So how
that was just kind of I don't know, how do you say it? It was like a side and a side. It wasn't
a side hustle, side job.
But when we first went to India, we didn't go as tourists. We didn't go as sightseers. We
Yeah.
only went wherever Srila Prabhupada directed us or called us.
Got you.
And now people go, before they go, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to go here. I'll go to Rishikesh. I'll go to Vrindavan. I'll go to Puri. I'll go, to the spa. I'll go to the Ayurvedic clinic. Yeah, we just went where Prabhupada directed us. The letter that we received inviting us to India came in a blue aerogram and had 10 names. And then and he was inviting us to join. He said, now is the time to begin the World Sankirtan movement, which he'd always talked about. So now is the time to begin. So then he had our names and his signature. And at the bottom in his handwriting, he goes, and baby Saraswati.
Oh.
So, again, just like in going to London, we were clear why we were going there. We had if you will, a mission to perform on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. So once again, we're there because of Srila Prabhupada and because of his mission. And it was to establish the mission of ISKCON in India. So you can, if you think of the dynamics, well, Srila Prabhupada, an elderly person from Bengal, and he goes alone on a freighter. He gets to America, he gets this international movement starting, and he somehow or other, in spite of being the only Indian, Prabhupada said at one point, I'm the only Indian in the Hare Krishna movement. He was like joking because we hadn't connected yet. So now we're going to India, Western people, including one black body devotee, to bring the Hare Krishna movement back to its roots, back to India.
That is. And so you were in India, and then of course you were called back to UK where you helped with Bhaktivedanta Manor and establishing helping that area. Well, one other area, if I may, and looking at time, because we can go so many pastimes that you've had. We've only got 15 minutes, so time has just flown. Thank you for these lovely nectarian pastimes. I want to bring it on to this lovely book that you have, we've co-authored with others, and A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters. And I believe this book was 12 years in the making. Am I correct? In terms of...
it's been a while. I don't know if it's been that long, but it's been a while.
It's been, and you've got 395
pages. And at the unbelieving, it's like this. We did not put this book together for any personal profit. It's our only desire was to get the information out, because most of what has been heard from up until very recently came from the side of the men, and there was no voice of the ladies. It's almost like we weren't even part of anything. There was this kind of silence, but now ladies are coming out, and so many publications are coming out. I mean, your temple president of Bhakti Vedanta Manor, Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi, so many beautiful books, and her memoir, 11 months or 11 years, 5 years? I can't even remember the exact title.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's incredible. Sorry for shocking. Stumble on that.
Somebody can comment that. Please let us know. Message it on our chats, and then we'll clarify that. Yes.
So this is a way to hear about the other side of Srila Prabhupada. The Hare Krishna movement just wasn't the men; it was the ladies as well, and we were fully engaged and fully satisfied to be among Srila Prabhupada's devoted servants and followers.
And this book itself, if anybody that is listening right now and for later on, you can order this book and just try this link. It'll take you direct. You can get it from Amazon, and also we've got there's also another place, I think it's called Book Press, where
that one is coming out of America, so you may want to try the Amazon first.
Okay.
We're not quite sure how this works yet, but hopefully.
No, So this link will take directly, but as you've heard, Amazon is the place you can get as well. Just type it in Amazon, and just put a link here: www.bit.ly/a bond of love. Just put that in, and see the magic happen. That's all I'm going to say on that part. So just that book itself, and I just had a confirmation. The Yamuna Devi's book, 7 years, 11 months.
Vishaka's book.
Oh, Vishaka's book.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
That's me.
So this is our humble offering to Srila Prabhupada, to all of you, to all of his followers into the future. And we hope you'll read it, and not just enjoy it, but learn something about Srila Prabhupada from it.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. So as I've just said before, please check it out. A Bond of Love, www.bit.ly/A Bond of Love. You can get it on Amazon as well. And I just want to say thank you so much, Malati Prabhu, for these pastimes you shared. And I have had one question come in. There's been many questions, if you permit. Srila Prabhu, it says here, Chandana, I think her name is just said, we've heard so much about baby Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada's pastimes with her. Would you kindly share where Saraswati is now and how she's doing?
Yeah, she lives in Illinois, close to Chicago. Has 2 kids. The girl just graduated from high school, will be heading to college if the college stays open, and her son has already graduated, and he goes to Embry-Riddle Space and Aeronautical University down in Dayton, Florida, and is, among other things, flying airplanes. So,
oh wow,
yeah, he'll be 21 in September, and I think it's in the next Back to Godhead. There is a feature article by Satyaraj, Stephen Rosen, Satyaraj, about Saraswati.
Oh wow! So get that article if you want to know more. Thank you for that question. That's amazing. So thank you so much for today. Thank you for the insights to Srila Prabhupada, and I'm praying hopefully in the future we can have you on again, because there's so many parts we can cover.
Could I say one more thing about
Please?
Prabhupada? So, Srila Prabhupada gave a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and he said, he used to say, one who has life can preach. One who has life can preach, regardless of our condition. Regardless of our condition, there is always something we can do. So just consider Srila Prabhupada in the last moments of his life. One who has life can preach, regardless of our condition, lying on that bed, what you may say, okay, his deathbed in Vrindavan, with the microphone by his lotus mouth, continuing to give us the beautiful, lucid Bhaktivedanta purports. He was not even eating at that time. He couldn't even lift his own head without. But regardless of our condition, there's always something we can do. And Srila Prabhupada did something at all moments in his life, including up until the very so-called end of this physical presence.
Wow. So if you have life, you should preach. And Srila Prabhupada, like you just mentioned, he did it to his last breath. Yeah. When we're so inspired to hear about Srila Prabhupada, and I'm sure the audience here as well have found this type of energized love for Srila Prabhupada. And we thank you, Malati Prabhu, for taking your time out. I know you're a very busy person. When we were trying to organize as well I know you've got a lot of engagements going on. So for you to take your time out is really appreciated.
Everybody is a very busy person, and one person's time isn't more valuable than another's. We're all doing what we can to serve and glorify Srila Prabhupada and the system. His standing order to everyone for all time is, please push on this movement. So each of us in our own way are continuing to do this, and it's a standing order for all time to come.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for listening today. And like, I'm going to just give the plug final time, A Bond of Love. Please do check it out. You can get it on Amazon. You can see the picture next to Malati Prabhu. That's A Bond of Love with Srila Prabhupada and his daughters. And www.bit.ly/A Bond of Love. Please do check it out. And on behalf of everybody here, we just want to say Hare Krishna and thank you for your time today.
And thank you, Jagannatha Kirtanananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.